Okay, I think we'll get started. If you're coming from the GNL project, I encourage you to look at the introductory video for this playlist to see if this is the right series for you. We're going to talk about orbits and gravity today. So over the next day in the problem sets, we'll be taking a little bit of an aside, although it's certainly related, to talk about the Earth going around the Sun or satellites going around Earth. So looking at gravity from a perspective that's much further away from Earth, all the stuff we've been doing so far, we've been moving close to the surface of the Earth, and we're going to see that we cannot do the same thing here. And we're going to actually force that idea and see that it's going to break down, and then we're going to lead us to use Newton's law of gravity for this general situation. Okay, well, let's take the situations that we have been looking at, and that is, say, projectile motion. So we'll just talk about projectile motion. Now, close to the surface of the Earth, so we fire a cannonball or something, and we can treat the Earth as flat over this distance. So the distance that the cannonball fires is insignificant compared to the circumference of the Earth, and so the Earth is essentially flat on that scale. But now imagine we went way up into the air and fired a cannonball. Well, now it might travel a distance far enough that the curvature of the Earth matters. And so we see a situation like this where the arc has to travel further because the Earth is curving away from the motion, and the cannonball would have to travel further before it finally impacts the Earth. Well, we can take this to the point where we're so high up or moving so fast that the cannonball falls. Now, in the most general, in normal situations, we went a little too high, shot it too fast, the cannonball will fall, and then it will just escape orbit, and it'll just leave the planet. So this is Earth here. However, for certain, if we hit it just right, then this will just continue to fall towards the Earth. So it's free falling, it's undergoing free fall. It'll continue to fall towards the Earth, but it'll end up never actually impacting because it goes all the way around. Now, we could be a little bit off here, and then we'll spiral into the Earth, or we'll spiral out and leave the Earth. But if we get it just right, we'll come right back to where we started, and we'll create an orbit. So we're able to shoot satellites up into space and have them orbit the Earth. We have the International Space Station, which is in low altitude orbit. It's only about 250 miles above the Earth, which is really small by satellite standards. And then we have the Geosynchronous satellites, the satellites that stay over one spot of the Earth. So they make one orbit in a day, whereas the space station makes an orbit in like an hour and a half. So very different situation for each of those. And they're at very different altitudes. 250 miles for the space station, like 22,000 miles for the geosynchronous satellites, so the satellites that we use for GPS and other things. Okay, so we want to be able to handle this type of thing, and this extends to, say, the Sun and the planets as well. So we could be talking about the Sun and the planets. So in the back of the book, there's a lot of information about each of the planets, the Sun. So when we do these problems, you can look to the back of the book. When you do the homework problems, you can look at the back of the book and find the radius of the planets, the mass of the planets. These are the types of information we're going to need. Okay, we're going to go through a calculation here, and everything in red is going to be wrong. So it's deliberately wrong, and then we'll see how to make it right. Okay, so if we look at this orbit, it's actually circular motion. And so there must be a centripetal force directed inward, and that has to be the force of gravity. So we use the gravitational force to serve as a centripetal force for this orbit. So So let's just naively use what we have been using, where g is 9.8 meters per second. We'll see that we're going to get the wrong answer here. Okay, so the acceleration is going to just match g now, because we want this to free fall the whole way. And we know that the centripetal acceleration is, for a circular motion, is the velocity squared over r. So this would be the velocity of the orbit over r, and which would lead us to this formula. Now again, this is in red, so it's wrong. This is wrong. The algebra is right based on what we've done here, but we're going to see that this is not going to give us the right physics. So we can calculate the period. So how long does it take? This is the period. How long does it take for the orbit to go all the way around? Well, that's going to be the circumference, 2 pi r, divided by the speed, right? And so we get 2 pi r, and then this is the speed, so we can simplify this to this. Again, this is wrong. All the algebra is right. We did everything right there. It's not an algebra mistake, but it's a physics mistake. Okay, so let's try this with the space station. And the space station is not very high compared to the radius of the Earth. So the radius of the Earth is actually 3.6. I guess I should write this down. 6.37 times 10 to the 6 meters. And so we're only like 10% of that above for the space station. So when we calculate that, we have to add that to our radius of our Earth, and we end up with this high above the center of the Earth. So we're looking at our radius to the center of the Earth. That's what this r is. This is to the center, not to the surface. Okay. All right, and then if we use this calculation, or this formula, we get 87 minutes, which is pretty close, actually. I think it's like 93 minutes or something like that. It's close, but it's wrong. So it's not exactly right. And yeah, maybe a few minutes is not a big deal, but in some of the timing that needs to be done for these orbits, it's a huge deal. So this is incorrect. We have the wrong formula. It's close because we're not that far above the surface of the Earth. It still matters that the Earth is round and that we're going all the way around, but we're not that far above. So let's try it now with something that's way above, the geosynchronous orbits. And like I say, they're like 22,000 miles. So let's see if we can calculate how high they are. So we're going to calculate, ultimately calculate, what is the altitude above the surface of the Earth here? Well, let's use our same formula here. We'll solve for, we're going to solve for r. So we're going to solve this equation here for r. So we're going to have to square, multiply by 2 pi square, and we get this formula here. I'm going to plug in the time for 1 day, and then we get this height. We're going to subtract the height of the Earth, the radius of the Earth, which on this to sig figs here is insignificant. So basically that's the height of the satellite that we calculate. But this is way off. This is 1.8 times 10 to the 9th, and we're actually 3.5 times 10 to the 7th. So much closer than what this calculation predicts. So way off here. So what's going on? Well, as we move away from, as we take two massive objects and move them away from each other, they don't feel the pull of their mutual gravitational attraction. It's only when they're close do they feel it. And so when we're close to the surface of the Earth, then we're always about the same distance from the center. So even if we're at the top of the building or in the basement, we're about the same distance to the center of the Earth. But now when we're talking about a geosynchronous satellite, we're quite a ways away. And so we now have a satellite that's a long way from the center of the Earth compared to something close. So it's going to feel a much smaller gravitational acceleration. Its g value will be different. And that's the basis of what's called Newton's law of gravity. So if we have two massive objects, it doesn't have to be a Earth and satellite, just any two objects, two pens, for example. If there's a distance r apart, then the force between them, the magnitude of the force is equal, felt equally by each mass, and it's g, which is the gravitational constant, times each of the masses, so it's linearly proportional to each mass, so each mass to the first power, and then 1 over r squared, so it goes as the inverse r squared. This is Newton's law of gravity. The gravitational constant is 6.67 times 10 to the minus 11, very small. Gravity is actually a very weak force, even though we feel it pretty significantly. In the grand scheme of things, it's a very weak force. And so we have 6.67 times 10 to the minus 11 meters cubed per kilogram per centimeter or per second squared. Okay, well, let's take a special case where one of the masses is a planet and the other mass is something small. And if that's the case, let's calculate an effective g here. So we're going to call this g prime. And notice we're missing a mass here. We just have the mass of the planet. So it's basically it's Newton's law, but just putting in the mass of the planet, not the mass of the small object. And so that's what we have here. And then the force for a small object is going to be mg prime instead of mg, right? So basically we're calculating the gravitational constant at a particular radius r. Well, let's check that near the surface of the Earth. So here we are standing on the surface of the Earth. Let's check, just for sanity's sake, let's calculate g prime at the surface of the Earth. Well, we plug in the gravitational constant, we plug in the mass of the Earth, and then we plug in the radius squared, and we multiply that out, and we get 9.8 meters per second squared, exactly as we should. So the reason we've been using 9.8 meters per second squared is because we're following Newton's law of gravity, and the Earth has the characteristics that it has. And we've talked about this before, that if we're on the moon, we feel a different acceleration because the mass is less, the radius is less. If we are on Mars, we feel a different acceleration. It's based on the characteristics of the planet. Well, let's recalculate our geosynchronous orbit now. So let's take our formula that we had right here. Let's see, where is it? Right here. But now let's replace the g with g prime. And so when we do that, we're going to plug in this now here for the mass of the Earth and gravitational constant, and this is the radius now to the center of the Earth. So we're gonna, when we calculate this value, we're gonna have to subtract off the radius of the Earth. Okay, so notice there's r equals something over r squared, so that r squared is going to come over here, make an r cubed. If we bring this over here, then we're left with that. So all we've done is just bring that guy over here, r cubed, so we have to take the cubed root of all this, plug in our numbers, and we get 4.2 times 10 to the 7th meters. That's for the distance above the center of the Earth. So we have to subtract the radius of the Earth, 6.67 times 10 to the 6th meters, and that gives us 3.5 times 10 to the 7th meters, which is what an actual geosynchronous orbit is. So we have to be careful now in these next couple of homeworks that we are not near the surface of the Earth anymore. We have to be using Newton's law of gravity under these conditions.